Chapter 35 The Second Circle of the Underworld. The Perspectives of Black and White Magic. There was nothing the supreme feminine powers could do to me in the first level of the Underworld, but still that vision of the women using men of desire was distressing. As I walked into the second circle of the Underworld, I reminded myself that every curse holds within it a blessing. In the second circle of the Underworld, there was shining gold everywhere. It was obvious now that this power could fuel lethal mercenaries and armies, and so I thought of this as the dragon's home and lair. There were many troops here along with ghosts and goblins. They were mining gold and turning it into coins to sell them. There was a river that ran through the middle, and it was sexual fluids from all the men and women above that flowed here. Fire was fanned by wind, and I imagined that if one stole any gold, the consequences would be severe. And so the golden fairy hung on to my horns when she spoke.
This is not a time to be bound by old conditions or by old authority. Shiva and his consort used to look after this space, but the dragon banished them, and this circle of the Underworld now has a tragic story. There are many black magicians that control these parts. They may appear as if they are trying to help, but they are actually advancing their armies, desires, and own separate self. Be very careful to trust anyone here. You must rely on wisdom of your intuition and no one else. At the same time, consider not only what will benefit you, but what will benefit others, and act according to the light you possess now within your life, because you may be called upon to undertake a radical departure from old ways. Total honesty is required. Otherwise, through negligence or refusal to see clearly, you may cause pain to others and damage to yourself. Adaptability and skillful means are the methods to cultivate at this time, and still you must wait for the universe to act. As you receive wisdom, remember, we do without doing, and everything gets done,
said the golden fairy. The ghouls and goblins would stare with wrathful faces, but their gaze was directed at the flaming sword. I would not swing it, but still I knew this blade had a way of speaking without words.
You like gold?
Asked the dragon. No.
What? How don't you like gold? We could work a deal out, you know. It's a giant supply. You can borrow as much gold as you need, and you'll only have to pay it back after you die,
said the dragon. No.
How about the sexual fluid? It's revitalizing and full of life force. Take a single drip, and you'll be able to destroy any enemy, said
the dragon. No. Let's go.
What man doesn't want gold?
Shouted the dragon to the second circle of the Underworld.
Fine, but there's still an offering you must give if you want to pass through.
This dragon led me through the giant piles of gold, and as we walked, I saw how the gold would sparkle and glow, yet I did not understand where the light came from, because we were deep within the unknown.
That light is coming from within. It is the power of your own soul. It expands outward to brighten the universe. You are closer than you think to fulfilling the goal. Your personality is palpable to others, but down here in this darkness, they see your light as a threat. This light will naturally attract an audience to bear witness to your remarkable achievements. Purpose and passion are the best fuel for forward momentum. So if you're lacking in those areas or lose confidence, take a moment to reflect and remember why you started,
said the golden fairy. Long ago I started this journey because I had found a great white buffalo. The dream held a garden to shelter lovers, but this journey pushed me through places I never thought I would go. If I saw this path laid out before me from the start, I may never have found the courage to depart, but because I took it one step at a time, I was able to discover the great power and potential within the human heart.
Do not lose heart. The beauty of the heart is unrivaled. It's easy to think it comes from the love of others, but the secret of the heart is that its beauty resides within and extends outward infinitely. This allows you to assimilate and digest all experiences of life, so the heart does not harbor resentment, conflict, or past pain within the psyche. The mind and ego may hold pain, but the heart is our greatest power. Trust in this divine force within, for this is the intuition you must follow. This type of energy is extremely rare, and not all of us have reached this advanced level of acceptance of the higher self and others. Follow your heart, and it will lead you to your true lover,
said the fairy. When we arrived to an altar in the middle of the gold, then the dragon said,
"Let's put him under."
There a black magician came beside the altar, and the moment I saw him I got the creeps. I knew this man held power, but I didn't know anything about his dark techniques. "Who is he?"
"That's Vaughn,"
said the dragon. Creepy Vaughn. Very suspicious Vaughn. It felt as if he could look through anyone to see where we had gone right or wrong. Should I be afraid of his powers? I whispered to the golden fairy.
In the practice of meditation and yoga, anyone can achieve powers. But when that control and influence is used for desire or selfish intent, it turns the magician into a dark coward. You must seek the light in him, for even in the dark magician, a light exists. But this light is difficult to rekindle when a dark magician wears the mask of a narcissist. He is a master of illusion and delusion. Remember, you are the author of your own story. He's going to try to spin your mind against you, but stay in your heart and you'll be free,
said the fairy.
"Come on, lay upon the altar,"
said the dragon. I feel that I didn't have a choice, and as I got closer, my heart began to break. I laid upon the cold stone altar, and there my body began to shake. This man named Vaughn was so creepy. Oh, creepy Vaughn would be an expert at Reiki. He wore a mask over his true light, and behind that mask, he peered through me. "What do you do, Vaughn?" I was trying to break the tension.
"I'm a teacher and a healer,"
he said. "Good to know. And what's that?"
"This is a special owl feather,"
said creepy Vaughn. The last thing I remember, I gazed over to the fairy. Her hands were over her mouth, and then I saw her tears crying for me, as if she wanted to send a message. What was she trying to warn me? But they tied me down to the table, and then a moment later, Vaughn brushed the owl feather upon me when I got sleepy. My eyes closed, and I went inward to dream. Drifting through the inner oceans, my psyche was like a boat lost at sea. I had surrendered my control, and now creepy Vaughn was driving my mental boat. I was a witness to wherever we were heading as he navigated our route. Creepy Vaughn took me into my old trauma. He explored the hardest parts of my life. Then at once, I felt a spine-chilling sensation when he caught on to a feeling of deep love and spun the wheel hard to the right. Heading full force toward this sensation, the closer we got, I felt as if I wanted to plead and beg. "Leave her alone," I muttered. "My lover has nothing to do with this." He smirked but kept going, and I was tied to an altar in the middle of the sea, while the boat traveled over the ocean of my pain that kept flowing freely. The closer he got, the more I wanted to dive overboard before my heart started breaking. When we reached this dreamland, he parked the boat and arranged the altar so that I could watch. Some teachers have a great way of cutting through the ego, but he twisted my heart into painful knots. As if I'd been hidden by an invisible blanket, no one could see me, and when I tried to yell and scream for help, no one could hear me. I realized this was a distant island, and creepy Vaughn would hang and wait around the markets. His eyes would scan the crowd while he tested my heart to see what about it had broken. At once she appeared, the yogini who followed me through the kingdom of the body and mind. We had walked up the path together, but that's when I had to go back down to clear more paths as I left her in the kingdom of the spirit above the mind. The moment I saw the yogini, It felt like 3 swords pierced my heart. Creepy Vaughn could feel it, and so he began to follow the yogini while my emotions and mind fell apart. Trapped and helpless, this was a wicked dream. I could see it happening from every angle, and I prayed this was not what it seemed. For a day or so, Creepy Vaughn followed the yogini I loved dearly, and there he spied on her, keeping track of her from a distance very carefully. With the same vision, he seemed to be peering through me, and he could also see right through the yogini. He could see where she was sensitive, and where her heart had been hurting. He could see the energy in her chakras, and where her mind was moving. The yogini traveled from temple to temple, as she recovered from the broken heart after true love. I had promised her when I cleared the paths back to the spirit that her and I would reconnect. Of course her heart was shattered, and so was mine, but we both knew we must follow our calling, and so I had to leave her in the kingdom of spirit while my duty took me downward away from the divine. The yogini was out and about in the markets, and after a couple days of keeping track of her, Creepy Vaughn read her mind and went up to the stand right beside her. She was looking at buying something, and he could read her thoughts. She couldn't decide which thing to buy, and so Creepy Vaughn knew where she was caught.
Can't decide,
asked Vaughn. I'm trying, she said. Again, it felt like 3 swords pierced my heart in this vision, and so the feeling of heartbreak may be even worse than death. And so I wondered if love is connected to insanity, since feelings of such intensity took over the lucid mind through self-destruction. I began to lose myself, as if I had no power of what was happening. All the while, I had to watch Creepy Vaughn in this vision, and it was beyond maddening. Don't be like Vaughn, using yogi powers to lure others in. He would show off to her, and I knew he could be trying to get her to sleep with him. He performed Reiki on her, and made her see all sorts of luminous colors, but this trick was an illusion. It was as if he cast a spell upon her to take her over. Don't be like Creepy Vaughn. He's got his eyes on travelers passing through. He'll dazzle you with a bit of magic, then a day or two later, he'll put you under a spell and try to sleep with you. Don't be a Vaughn, for even if she appreciated him, he was using ancient practices to show off powers in order to get under her skin. While he dazzled her, they began to bond, and so he would teach her how to use these powers. Then he showed her how to become a sort of gray or black magician, to use energy and wishes to get material desires. Creepy Vaughn took her on an adventure, and he showed her the power of the unconscious mind. He said that whatever she needed, then if she taps into this inward intuition, then there's nothing she couldn't find. He was teaching her aspects of magic, but Creepy Vaughn was a dark magician, and so he led her deeper into manifestation, where she learned to attract things from within her own intuition. Again and again he led her, teaching her the power of spiritual means to attract material things. I wanted to scream that by using energy to attract selfish things is much more dangerous than one might think. It's the same with making a wish. There are conditions that will come back. The same with taking gold from a dragon's lair. In time, you must pay everything back. As their bond grew, my heart continued to break. I watched them get closer, until again, my body began to shake. Don't be like Creepy Vaughn, using yogi powers to show off and lure others in, leading people deep into illusions, and then before you know it, you could be naked in bed with him. Stay clear of Creepy Vaughn. He's got his eyes on travelers passing through. As I watched it all happening, there was nothing I could do. I felt exhausted and doomed, for how could our love be true? And I remained tied to the altar while my heart broke open upon this tomb. Now in the pain of despair and grief, it took me many nights of heartbreak to understand what I was feeling. Finally, I realized that the heaviness in my heart had split open, and there sprouted a seedling. This whole situation was beyond my limits, and there was nothing I could control, except to hold love for my best friend. And so I felt this energy spread into her and my soul. The seedling crawled out through my broken heart, and their new life had come to form. By the power of life's tragedies, instead of letting this destroy me or others, I used it to transform. The shell around my heart was so heavy and firm, but it was not of any use. Now a brilliant stem began to flourish, and I knew the power in my heart would someday bloom. Common sense is not so common. Be not simply good, but good for something. If we work with our whole heart, then we will succeed, and so fearless courage is the foundation of victory. As I laid upon the altar and tomb, I hoped that from this tragedy, my broken heart would stay open so that love could bloom. Because when it comes to love and heartbreak, I remembered that not a single person on the planet is immune. And so I reminded myself, as I felt the repeated feeling of my heart breaking, that the fairy was indeed correct, that every curse holds within it a great blessing. I wanted to tell my best friend so many things, that you shouldn't let yourself get put under a spell of another person. Even if the magician may show off and dazzle you with Reiki, magic, or potions, remember that within your own soul is the true luminous solution. Maybe there was something Vaughn was supposed to teach you, but don't let him take control. You are the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul. When I came back to, I opened my eyes and saw the underworld. Now the dragon and the black magician were irate.
I did everything I could to torture him, but his anger wouldn't break. I found where he was most vulnerable and tender, and then I beat his heart and spun it in spells. But still, I couldn't get him to release any rage or anger,
said Creepy Vaughn. The shell around my heart was broken, and I felt a void I had never known. I lost my best friend somewhere in heaven, and now I was in hell all on my own.
You're not alone,
said the golden fairy.
I'm more proud of you than I've ever been. When anger was about to make you explode, you stayed centered on the true love within. It hurts to go through that, especially when it appears he's betraying your lover. You were able not only to consider what would benefit you, but you were also able to consider what would benefit others.
Was that vision real? I'll never be the same. My heart has never broken like that before. I never wish for anyone to feel that pain. When they untied me, I fell onto my hands and knees. I lost my best friend, and losing a love like that often feels like it's better off to die. I could not imagine going back to life, and I could not think of moving forward.
Come on,
said the dragon.
We're going deeper into the third layer.
In a daze, how could I explain the force that ripped my heart apart? I was shattered from that vision, and I could feel the broken pieces hanging around my heart. Here I was going deeper, but why had I left my lover so much higher? I couldn't tell if she had been trapped under a spell, and if she was under the command of a black magician, then her situation was dire. But what could I even do? It was not my life to live through.
Stay true. Here, let me show you,
whispered the fairy. As we walked down a staircase that brought us even lower in between the second and third circle of the underworld, I realized we were up very high. There were many stairs left, and that's when the golden fairy levitated over my third eye. She shined her light while my shoulders relaxed. Then I let go of the tension in my jaw. Her golden light was so warm and welcoming that I saw a vision that left me in awe. It was almost exactly the same vision as before, but totally different, and so without words, my soul began to tune in and listen. My lover, the yogini, was out and about in the markets of an island, and after a couple days of watching her, a man named John seemed to be able to read her mind and went up to stand right beside her. She was looking at goods in the market, and John could feel her energy. The yogini couldn't decide what to buy, and so John could see where she was caught. "Can't decide?" asked John. "I'm trying," said the yogini. This time, I didn't feel my heart break in the vision, and so this light made me curious if John and the yogini were doing their best. It was a glimpse of the same vision, but with totally different energy, and now John appeared as someone she could trust. And so I wondered if love is connected to insanity. Feelings of such intensity took over the lucid mind through a heart opening. I began to lose myself in this light, as I had no power of what was happening. All the while, I watched John in this vision as he cared for the yogini with compassion. You can be like John, using yogi powers to care for and help others. In this version, I could see that he looked after her the same way I cared for her as my lover. He performed Reiki on her and made her see all sorts of luminous colors. He taught her in ways many can't imagine, and so he appeared like a guardian looking over. John took her on an adventure, and he showed her the power of the unconscious mind. He said that whatever she needed, if she taps into this inward intuition, then there's nothing she couldn't find. He taught her aspects of magic, but this man was a light magician, and so he led her deeper into manifestation, where she learned to attract things from her own intuition. Again and again he led her, teaching her the power of spiritual means to attract spiritual things. I watched again this time, curious about the power of how we train our minds to think. But even in the spiritual realm, it's the same as making a wish. There are conditions that come back. The same with taking gold from a dragon's lair. We can use the spiritual power however we wish, but in time, we must pay everything back. Now as their bond grew, my heart remained quite tender, and so I watched them get closer and closer. Now this was a form of love that John held for the yogini, but instead of physical attraction, he helped her discover her soul's calling and spiritual mission. I could see that a pure teacher is not trying to sleep with their students, and so by caring for the soul, these teachers are white magicians. Then the fairy jumped upon my head, and she took a seat near my horns. She was along for the ride again, while the circles of the underworld began to transform.
Your intuition is correct. Follow your inner wisdom without fail. As you reflect upon these two visions and the polar opposites that they appear to be, also reflect on the man you saw as Vaughn and John, for they are not separate from you and me. They may as well be called Jay and James, for that is your name. You and everyone else holds the same potential to become the darkest or purest magician,
said the golden fairy. This idea took some time to sit with, because we all live our own lives. Each of us has two sides, and as we walk upon our path, we find all sorts of unique situations. Meanwhile, my mind tried to settle as it was caught in between the two visions. My intuition is powerful and vibrant, and so I honor this inner wisdom. But how do you make sense of such extreme shift in perspective? My mind has seen both, and I do not know which vision is right and which vision should be rejected.
My light is called Sophia. It is the fabric of consciousness that exists during the perpetual and eternal emanation or unfolding of physical creation, which emanates consciousness. It's called Sophia, and a way through the struggle has already been created for you, and you are being led on that path. Your authentic soul path may include many opposing situations. Be grateful, but do not be dazzled or distracted by such experiences. Focus on what connects you to your heart and grounds you in the simplicity of spiritual truth, which is the practice of love, kindness, and peace. This will allow for successful progress over the material world without disturbing the sanctity of your soul. In mysticism of the Kabbalah, Sophia is the first and truest light. It emerges from the Absolute, which is pure emptiness, beyond all characteristics, phenomenon, and form. The capacity to create something from apparently nothing is one of the definitions of magic. Whatever is needed is made manifest. It is provided to the receptive heart to benefit all beings,
said the golden fairy. But what if the world uses this power of selfishness? What if my lover is led astray? Could this be the reason I felt my heart break?
It's possible, but the same light and dark powers that you saw in the visions is the same possibilities within your own life. You cannot control how someone else will move upon their path. You can only control your own life. We all have darkness and light within us, so how will you grow? Your heart is tender because higher love is emerging, and that's why the hard shell around your heart broke open. Sophia illuminates the way of sacred soul magic that creates healing and deep fulfillment. This light recognizes there is a problem, yet does not dwell on it nor evoke toxic mind games of blame and shame. My light focuses on solutions. Underneath fancy words, outlandish claims, and complex doctrines, the light of spirit is recognized by its effect. Genuine spiritual connection helps us outgrow our problems. Ego will tell you a situation is too complicated or someone else is to blame. Or if you could just change this one thing, then healing would happen. But when you are in your ego, you are not spiritually effective. You will be locked in suffering and confusion. As a human being, you are able to use your free will as you choose. You can focus on the negative and distance yourself from the light. Refuse to trust and insist you always know best. You can choose to feel unappreciated, betrayed, or afraid when life does its unpredictable dance. Spirit will love you and seek to help you even when you use your free will in such a way. At any time, you can choose to say, enough of that misery, and open your heart to connect with the higher creative and healing intelligence of the light. No matter how much our wounded minds or broken hearts may believe a situation cannot be healed, the light of Sophia is always there. It reminds us, whether we can see it or not, that there is a spiritual path through all troubles. The path can be so beautiful when we become profoundly grateful for the struggle which causes us to grow, even if we never wish to repeat the experience. Acknowledgement is the beginning of healing. If something isn't quite right, be kind and wise enough to admit it, then seek out the genuine light, which will evoke peace in your heart. Have the courage to trust and let go of approaches that will not lead you anywhere worth going. As you open yourself to what is, even the unexpectedly difficult twists of fate, you will become even closer to the radiant grace and luminous clarity, which is reassuring you and healing you. And I am here guiding you and loving you,
said the Golden Fairy. As we walked to the third circle of the Underworld, there was grief that was released and left behind. It seemed I walked into a new life yet again, because another piece of me had to die. Sometimes I think about the other side, how things would be if I would leave this life. And I can't lie that I haven't tried, but sometimes I fantasize. It's really hard to get out of my mind, because these are them battles that you fight without fists. These are them lessons that you learn without friends. It's these moments when you're down on yourself, calling out without help. When you see that all you have is faith in God, so we keep our focus on the light. A daily fight. That's how it goes when you're chosen. This world was never meant to be our home. And soon we'll be up out of here on mountaintops, soaring all the way up from the bottom floor. I'm here to say thank you to my friends who kept me close to the ground. I'm saying thank you to them who feel like family now. 'Cause I'm living proof that God loves himself a challenge. I am living through situations I can't manage on my own. And there's nobody calling when you're all alone. And here I am walking through the depths on my own. I'm telling you that the stars that shine the brightest are the ones in the darkest spaces. I can't fake this. Gravity can't get enough of me. And so I say these words so that you might find the recipe through my own mistakes. I'm hoping you don't make them. Hoping that you'll make it. Through this life the storms will come. Just know I'll be right here until it's done. This life is a story, so go ahead and write your verse. Life is a movie, teaching everything you learned. I feel God smiling every time I'm at my lowest. I feel God working every time I'm at my worst. And behind every blessing, you better know it starts from a curse. God is always smiling because I'm living this story as I write each verse.